Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we've got a fascinating story about d.light, a company that really managed to achieve massive scale while tackling a huge global issue, energy poverty.
It's an incredible story, and our mission today is to really unpack the two things that made it happen. Their product innovation and maybe even more importantly, their business model innovation.
Right. So let's set the stage. We're talking about a problem that, as of 2020, still affects over 733 million people.
Mostly in South Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. And this isn't just an inconvenience. I mean, a lack of electricity holds back everything: education, health, any kind of economic opportunity.
And these communities were, and many still are, trapped in this awful dependency on kerosene lamps. We know the light is terrible, but what's the actual day-to-day burden of that?
It's what some analysts call the poverty penalty. And it's brutal.
The poverty penalty.
Yeah. Imagine you're earning just a few dollars a day and you're forced to spend, what, 10 to 15% of your entire income on fuel for this one dim, smoky lamp?
So you're paying more as a percentage of your income for worse light than anyone in a developed country. It's an economic trap.
It is. And that's before you even get to the health and safety risks.
The fires, the burns.
Exactly. The indoor air pollution causes terrible respiratory problems. And the sources point to this one key moment for d.light's co-founder, Sam Goldman. He was in Benin, and he saw a child who had been severely burned because a kerosene lamp had tipped over. And that just, it crystallized the entire mission for him.
You can see why. It moves it from a business challenge to a moral one. So he and Ned Tuzin founded d.light in 2007, not just to build a better lamp, but to completely replace kerosene.
And to do it with a model that was financially sustainable. No endless subsidies. A real business.
Okay, so let's get into that first step. They're fresh out of Stanford. What did that initial product actually look like? What was the frugal innovation here?
Well, the first designs were all about being simple and incredibly durable. They had to survive in tough rural environments. So they launched two key products, starting in big markets like India.
And what were they?
The first was the d.light S10. Think of it as the entry-level model. Just a basic, ultra-affordable solar lantern. Gave you about 8 hours of light.
Okay, simple light.
But then came the S250, and this was the real early breakthrough. It was a bigger, more robust lantern, but it had one killer feature: a mobile phone charging port.
Ah, that's it. Because charging your phone could mean a whole day's trip and expense. So they solved two problems in one box.
That's the frugal innovation right there. They stripped out every feature that wasn't absolutely essential to meet the biggest needs of their customers, and that kept the price incredibly low.
Okay, so they've got a great affordable product. But here's the massive hurdle, right? How do you get it to people who are scattered across remote regions, the last mile?
This is where their business model genius starts. They knew traditional stores wouldn't work, so they had to build their own distribution channels from scratch. The whole idea was to meet customers where they already were.
And they did that by partnering with organizations that were already on the ground.
Absolutely crucial. Their partnership with microfinance institutions, or MFIs, was a game changer, especially in India.
So these are the local groups that already handle village savings and small loans.
Exactly. And they're deeply trusted, mostly by groups of women. So d.light could just tap into that existing network to market the lanterns.
So that solves distribution. And because it's an MFI, it also solves the financing, right? They can offer it as a microloan.
Yes, but even more important was the trust. The most valuable thing they were leveraging was that human trust, which acts as a kind of social collateral.
That's a great way to put it.
And beyond the MFIs, they built up this whole grassroots network of, local shopkeepers, informal traders. They trained them to demo the lights, sell them, and that created real word of mouth.
So they're layering a sales channel directly onto existing social and economic networks. It's brilliant, and it worked. The numbers show they spread to nearly 40 countries in just 5 years.
Yeah, they'd reached something like 7 million people by 2012. It proved the market was real.
But then customer needs started to evolve.
Right. Once you have good light, you start wanting more. You want a fan, maybe a small TV. You want lights in more than one room.
So that pushed d.light towards selling bigger kits, full solar home systems.
Exactly. But that created a whole new affordability problem. These kits cost, what, $50 to $200? Way too much for a family to pay all at once.
And this is the moment that leads to the biggest innovation of all.
This is what changed the entire sector. Pay-as-you-go financing, or pay-go.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Break down how pay-go works.
So at its core, it's a lease-to-own model. A customer pays a very small down payment, maybe what they'd spend on kerosene in a week.
Okay, so a few dollars.
Right. And then they pay for the energy in tiny amounts, maybe 50 cents a day, using their mobile phone. It all runs on mobile money platforms like M-Pesa in Kenya.
And the really clever part is the technology inside the solar unit itself.
That's the enforcement mechanism. It's brilliant. If you make your 50-cent payment, the system is unlocked and works. If you miss a payment,
The lights go out.
the system just shuts down until you pay up. It's that simple.
It's transformative because it perfectly aligns the cost of clean energy with the cash flow they already had. They were already spending that 50 cents a day just on toxic kerosene. It's a redirection of spending, not a new expense.
And that model completely changed d.light's identity. They weren't just a product company anymore. They were now, for all intents and purposes, a consumer finance company.
A huge shift. The sources say that by 2019, almost 70% of their revenue came from pay-go products. But wait, managing millions of tiny loans across all these remote areas? It sounds incredibly risky. How on earth did they keep default rates down?
You'd think so, but they proved that low-income customers are actually very reliable when the product is essential. Their default rate was consistently under 5%.
5% is amazing. So the embedded tech basically handles the risk.
It does. The collateral is the service itself. And operationally, mobile money makes collection almost free. No one has to go door to door. The data they collected also gave them, for the first time, credit histories for millions of people who were previously unbanked.
So this data-driven model really took off where mobile money was strongest, sub-Saharan Africa.
Kenya, especially. The high adoption of M-Pesa made it the perfect place to scale PayGo. But what's also interesting is how they adapted elsewhere. In India, for example, the government was expanding the grid.
So people were getting connected.
Yes, but the power was unreliable, frequent blackouts. So d.light pivoted. They started selling solar inverters and backup power systems to the under-electrified, a completely different market.
And as people got more power, they started wanting more appliances.
Of course. The product line expanded. They started making hyper-efficient fans, solar TVs, and they even started financing smartphones on the same PayGo model. They realized energy access and digital access are two sides of the same coin.
Now, a model like PayGo ties up a huge amount of capital and customer debt for, a year or more. How did they get the funding for that kind of global expansion?
That was the next challenge. They had to convince big institutional investors that this was a safe bet, and they did. They secured massive financing rounds, including one for $238 million.
Wow.
It basically proved to the world that financing low-income, off-grid customers is a bankable proposition.
So let's talk about the final scale here, because the numbers are just staggering. What's the impact they've had?
It's profound. They're in over 70 countries now, and by 2023, they'd improved the lives of over 175 million people.
175 million. It's hard to even picture that. That's a huge country's worth of people.
And think of the direct benefits. Kids can study at night. Families are saving money they used to burn on kerosene. Health is better because they're not breathing in toxic fumes.
And there's a huge environmental win, too.
A massive one. They've averted tens of millions of tons of co-Euro emissions. It's a win for development and a win for the climate simultaneously.
So if we boil it all down, the key lesson seems to be that the technology, the solar panel itself, was only half the story.
Less than half, maybe. The real breakthrough was the business model. Creating that last-mile distribution and then cracking the code with PayGo, that's what unlocked the scale.
And their ability to keep adapting. Shifting from off-grid to backup power in India shows they were always listening to their customers.
It proves that you can have massive social impact and be a commercially sustainable, profitable company. The two can actually fuel each other.
They didn't just sell a product, they built a system of distributed consumer finance around a social good. That's a powerful template.
It really is.
So that leaves a really interesting question for you to think about. If pairing the right tech with this PayGo lease-to-own model solved energy access for 175 million people, what's next? What other critical needs, things like clean water systems, basic healthcare equipment, or even tools for small farmers, could be unlocked for millions more by adapting this very same market-driven model?